Okay. All right. Simon, ChatGPT took the world by storm about a year ago, right?
Well, I think it took the world and also my wallet by storm, as I've been paying $20 a month for God knows how long at this point, but I can't get enough of it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And now we have Google Bard, connecting to all of our googly stuff. And, it feels like AI is able to do just about everything now, right?
Well, I mean, it's doing a lot. It's reinventing my expectations every single day.
So here's a thought. Why don't we just hand over all of our data and all of our hardest questions about marketing effectiveness to our AI overlords and have them tell us how much money to spend in each of our channels, right? What could
Br-
possibly go wrong?
it's brilliant. There's no possible downside to that scenario.
Nothing at all. Well, when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence being deployed for marketing mix modeling, we might want to pump the brakes a little bit. At least that's what some leaders in the industry are saying. And to explore this topic in a little bit more depth, we wanted to bring on an expert, someone who's been in this field for nearly two decades and has built a highly successful company around marketing mix modeling over the past 10 years. Dr. Ramla Jarrar has a Master of Science in Quantitative Methods in Marketing and Optimization, a Ph.D. in Econometrics and Quantitative Economics. She's published numerous conference and journal papers with fascinating topics like, here we go, numerical analysis of optimal advertising. It's a page turner. Empirical study of optimal advertising in a Stackelberg game, which I had to look up what Stackelberg meant. So that was a new one for me. And my favorite, Markov perfect equilibrium strategies in marketing investment allocation in a multi-instrument Lancaster duopoly. So if you want some light reading for a Friday night, go find those articles and cozy up next to the fireside and grab a glass of wine and start reading. But that's not all. She's a professor at the Mediterranean School of Business and is the co-founder and president of Mass Analytics, a software solution and service provider with a focus on marketing effectiveness measurement. And you may recognize her from one of her many YouTube videos on the Mass Analytics channel, where she provides free marketing mix modeling masterclasses. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ramla Jarrar.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be in the show today. And thank you for this bright presentation. I almost forgot about all these articles. It was like 20 years ago.
Well, I've said it before, but wouldn't it be great to have Jim write your obituary at some point in life? He makes all of us shine. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
It's a unique skill. Well, so, the main theme for our episode today is around automated AI-driven marketing mix modeling. But before we dive into that, can you talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at today and some of the work that you're doing at Mass Analytics?
Okay, so it's a very long story, but as you mentioned, I've been here for a long time, 2 decades and even more. I don't even want to say what's my age today, but it's all started when I finished my PhD, and I was really looking for something where I can practice my PhD, and I was looking for something where you can use econometrics analysis applied to marketing, because I had a minor in marketing and a major in what we used to call at the time business analytics, data analytics, and so forth. Now it's called a little bit data science, but back in the days it was called data analytics. And then when I found that company that actually provides marketing mix modeling, I never heard about marketing mix modeling before. I was so delighted, because this is exactly the holy grail. That's what I really wanted to do in my life. And I started there, and I was very, very happy, because in a way, the CEO at the time, Paul Baker, took a pounce, because actually I was coming from academia. I did not know how to model anything except for the equations that I was solving during my PhD. So he believed in me, and he took me on board as a project manager. And then I learned it all from there, and all the marketing mix modeling, the basics, and how you solve your equation, how you construct your model, how you evaluate it. And then I think 12 years on, I decided to create something a little bit different. So at the time, I was saying I was trying to disrupt the market, in the sense that I wanted to create a software, because where I used to work, we used to deliver managed services. So we would, like, as a traditional and classic managed service, you would take the data, do all the number crunching, and then go back to the client and present your results, your recommendations on how they should deploy their budget in the future. So what I wanted to do is really creating something that will make that job much easier for the likes of me, the ones who do the modeling, but also for the brands that really want to uncover that black box. And I know that in your previous podcast, you talked a lot about the fact that in some of the areas of marketing measurement, still a black box, and that's what people fear the most. So my challenge was, how can I make something that looked that sophisticated at the time? How can I demystify it? How can I democratize it? How can I make it very easy to people? And hence the YouTube channel that you talked about and the Udemy courses that we launched recently. We really wanted to bring the audience, the brands, and even the agents that do that behind the scenes to understand exactly how it's being done. Because I have a strong belief that the more you explain marketing mix modeling, the more you will gain in terms of getting the confidence of the people that you work with. And the journey started like that, really. So I really wanted to create a software that makes it easier on modelers and brands to do marketing mix modeling. We started creating our first version, then we handed it to some clients, we got feedback, and we used an agile way to do it. And today we are very proud to say that Massanix today is one of the most known companies that deliver and software end-to-end for marketing mix modeling. We work with big brands in almost 20 countries today, and we keep on innovating. We keep on adding new features so we can keep up with the pace at which marketing mix modeling is evolving today.
Yeah,
that is so interesting. Sorry, if I can just jump in here. Hearing that story is so interesting, and knowing that you started Mass Analytics in 2013. If I look back in the past, and I remember the sort of the zeitgeist of 2013 or that moment in time, I guess I would frame that as perhaps the height of inflated expectations associated with deterministic multi-touch attribution, and starting a company that's doing MMM at that time, the mentality around it was, yeah, sure, if you're spending $200 million on marketing a year, like that makes sense to you, but that's the top 0.1%. How was that moment in time in terms of, you're going up against this sort of deterministic behemoth that's been promised to marketers forever, saying, by the way, we're doing this in a model capacity. How did that go? What made you go down this path rather than deterministic MTA?
Okay, so I think the hype of MTA started a little bit later. So I would say that 2015, 2016, that's where you really felt the hype. Because I remember back in the days, any call we make to prospects, nobody wanted to hear about marketing mix modeling anymore.
Right.
Everyone was talking about MTA, and it was really a very hard period. By the way, at the time we started creating our own MTA solution. So we've seen that the market was moving towards that, and our R&D team started creating like the MTA solutions. So in a way, it was very hard because at the time we started this, like 2 or 3 years down the line, like most of the clients or the prospect that you were talking to, they are really into MTA. But we can really see that even that the death or the demise of MTA is happening like right now or 1 or 2 years ago. But I could see from that point in time that even at that time, even at its hype, we know that at least when you know how the methodology works, you know that it won't fly long, because we know that in terms of the methodology, there were gaps even when there were no issues with the using cookies and so forth. So again, but again, and I know most of the players out there did not have the audacity to voice it over. So in a way, there was this hype. You need to keep quiet, because otherwise they will tell you now you are fighting MTA because you have an MMM solution. But I think now when I go to conferences like the ICOM, like all the people can kind of say today, we all knew that MTA will never deliver at its promises, even if when it was at its hype, but nobody dared say something because it was like the holy grail for the brands. How dare you say something about that magic tool that will enable you to track the user from A to Z and know exactly what really served the conversion? So you cannot say it, even if you were convinced that it was not a miracle solution in those days.
Yeah.
So I think
it's funny how
that's such an interesting moment, because that is the sort of the era that I really came into the measurement side of marketing. I was as previously more on just holistic digital marketing strategy, and to your point, I had that mentality about just like MMM. Like I knew about it, but it was for a very reserved, very small group. MTA is the future. This is where everything is headed. And even if you look at Google around that time, I think is that when they bought Odometry. Because that was all. I was like, look, if Google's making the investment in Odometry and bring Paul Palman on, they're going to build Google Attribution. All of this is sort of, it's predestined of where this is going, and there was no one else doing it. So that takes an incredible just courageousness, quite honestly, to come in and say, I'm going to back myself and we're going to make this company work in what is the era of MTA.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jim.
and I think so. I think there were two challenges actually, Simon. Not only the fact that we were going against the current, although as I mentioned to you, we started doing the MTA like in the corridors in R&D department, but I think also as well at the time proposing to brands a software where they can use and do MMM on their own. I think at the time we were too early.
Yeah.
So most of the cases we were selling more to agencies than to brands, because brands say, well, we need to go for an agency that does marketing mix modeling as a managed service. There's a lot of expertise out there. Marketing mix modeling is very difficult. No way that I can make my internal consultant do MMMs. We lack a lot of things. So I think also that was a challenge to convince brands that no, you can do it. We can teach you how to do it. There are steps that we can take you through. We can demystify it. We can break it down into small tasks, and we can definitely train your teams to do it. So that was also another challenge. I think at the time, back in 2013, the market was not really ready for a do-it-yourself solution. So that was another challenge that we really needed to fight in order to get our place in the market and to get where we are today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So interesting.
Yeah. And even now, the sort of do-it-yourself solution is... It's not a slam dunk, right? It's still, there's some challenges because you have to have someone who knows what they're doing, understands the context of the data, understands the nuances of things like ad stock and diminishing return curves and how those are calculated. And so, yeah.
Well, do it yourself. I mean, I think it's always been relative in every industry, right? There are products that IKEA sells that like, this is do it yourself. I'm like, I am not building a bed. There, about a bookcase is where I stop. And so there are elements of MMM that I feel very comfortable handling in a self-serve capacity. But then there are also much larger components that I go, gonna need a data scientist to work on this with me. So that is, yeah. And but that maybe that's where AI comes in. Is that where it comes in right here? I think like this is an interesting moment in time of sort of this height of democratized MMM in terms of, we've seen these lightweight MMM and Robin come to market, but then we're also still dealing with this knowledge gap in the industry, and quite honestly, there's all these components associated with the data prep and all. And there's so many pieces of this that still don't make it that accessible. So I guess, and Jim, not to jump too far ahead, but I'm wondering, should we jump into the AI questions? Like, is this where we want to jump off?
Yeah, I think this is a great
awesome.
Great segue into it. Yeah, so. One of the things I was thinking about was like exactly to your point, Simon, like how can AI, what place does it play? Like what role does it play? How can we use it? And before we even talk about that though, maybe a better way is to flip it and say, well, what can't it do? Right? Because, like I said at the beginning, we have ChatGPT. It's just mind blowing now what, companies have been able to do with large language models and the like. And so, like, I think people are sort of making a somewhat of a leap to imagining, well, if AI can do that, then surely it can do this. But what do you see, Ramla, as far as the things that maybe people think it can do with regard to marketing mix modeling that are just no way, not now, maybe in the future, but not right now?
Yeah. So I think there is a saying, I don't know who said that, but change is inevitable. Growth is a choice. Okay. ChatGPT is here. AI is here. No, it's inevitable. We cannot change it. Now, I think it's very, very important that we grow with it. Okay. There are areas definitely where AI will help tremendously in the field of marketing mix modeling. I can cite many examples. For example, data preparation itself. Okay, we know that there is a lot of automation that needs to happen, and we can learn from the different projects that we run, and we can establish specific pipelines of data processing in a way where we take your data from its raw format to a format that is ingestible for marketing mix modeling. The second area where we can use a lot of AI is what you call feature engineering. Okay, that's where you take your raw data and you apply, as you mentioned, your decay, diminishing returns. We know that when you had like 20 years of experience in marketing mix modeling, you know that any data you have, there are certain processors or certain data transformation that you need to do regardless. And these are the data where you need to apply this in order to obtain that. So that, of course, can be automated. Another area where you can do a lot of use of AI and automation is creating the model itself. Okay, and here, for example, I can think about, for example, in mass analytics, we use a combination of random forest and genetic algorithm in order to help the model create an automated version where the user can input his own experience. For example, you can say that, so give me the best combination of all the variables that I have created. Here I'm thinking about thousands of variables and millions of combinations that the human mind can process, but you can guide it. You can say, look, because I have had this experiment, and this is how I want to calibrate that coefficient in order to match what I had in the experiment. This is a constraint that you can add to your AI algorithm, okay? You can add things like, okay, I know that, for example, from the ad stock group, you are only allowed to take one and only one variable because it doesn't make sense to have a model where you have like 3 or 4 ad stocks from the same group of variables. So I think that there are a lot of things that, based on our experience, we can make the algorithm ingest and use in its search of the best solution. Now, where the human mind will always be needed is when it comes to interpreting results, because these algorithms will help you speed up and automate anything that could be automated. And I am really in favor of any automation in marketing mix modeling. So anything that is repetitive, that could be done by the machine, give it to the machine. And that's, again, even before the AI started, I used to say it with the do-it-yourself kind of software, because one of the questions or one of the objections I had from agencies, they used to tell me, Ramla, if I take your software and I use it in order to deliver services to my clients, what is my competitive advantage? I tell them, your competitive advantage is not about repeating repetitive tasks. Your competitive advantage is when you free up the time of your analysts so they can spend time digesting the results, analyzing them, interpreting them, and responding to the business question they had. It doesn't advance you if your analyst spends 3/4 of his time prepping the data and creating the best model when they could use the richness of their experience in order to ingest it as parameters in an AI algorithm. So I think the competitive advantage comes from how can I leverage my experience to extract results that match what the brands want. And that was my answer to that. And that's exactly the answer that I give to people that say that automation will kill the business. And no, on the contrary, you need to embrace it. It will help you a lot automate what needs to be automated. And your human mind, the one that you are paying a lot of money for, will be devoted to create things that make sense to the brand. Because we should not always forget that marketing with modeling is art and science. Leave the science to AI and leave the art to your analysts so they can leverage that. So that's my response to that.
That's really interesting. And sorry, one piece of that though that we talked about before, you were mentioning before, is there's this fear of the black box, and that is one thing I still think there's a little bit of mystery. It's a little mysterious exactly how MMM works for a lot of folks, but when they hear AI and MMM, I think that increases the degree of black boxness, for lack of a better expression. Do you see that as a challenge when you're presenting this idea to folks?
Not necessarily, so long that when you say I am transparent, you really mean it. Because I came across many clients who came to us after working with other agencies that promised them transparency, but transparency was not there. And I think that you mentioned this in one of the podcasts you had about what does it mean black box? What does it mean opening up your software? For me, opening up my software, meaning that because the people that use our software or any MMM software are primarily data analysts or data scientists, and they need to present results to the business. They need to submit to the business. So when they are asked a question, they need to have the answer. And if they are dealing with a black box, they won't be able to answer the question. So that's why it's very important when you say transparent, meaning that if I am building an ad stock to my search variable, I need to tell you exactly what is the functional form that I am using for this. If I am building a diminishing return curve and giving an S-shaped curve, I need to tell you what is the formula that I'm using, because in case you are asked, you can respond to that. And sometimes I think some of the providers of the software think that this is their know-how. I don't think so, because I did not invent the ad stock. The diminishing return curve that I am using is not a secret. You go to any public, they are published. Now, if for me, giving you this information handy in my user guide, it can only help you better understand, but it's not something that I have created. However, my IP, what I am adding to the business is all these ideas that happen in the same place that will help you to run the project end to end. But me telling you what is the processor and what is it, the transformation behind the mathematical formula, I don't think that this is something that should be held back. The other thing that I make very, very easy to our clients is the dependency of the software. So I say to my client, the minute that you do not want to work with us, very easy. There's one button that you push in the software. All your equation will get out. From the raw data to process data, to processing details, to the p-value, to the t-stat, to the contribution, to the percentage code, everything. Meaning that you don't feel that you are trapped within that black box. And then when you want to go out, there is a huge cost for you to pay, because people don't like that. And the more we go into this era of AI, people want to see things that they can understand. Now, the AI method that you use, some of them are black box. And I agree with you in that case. You would have a great predictive model, but you don't know what it's composed of. And that's where I say to people, please move away from this. But you have other algorithm or AI methods, like regression, for example, where you know what goes into your black box, which in this case, it doesn't become a black box. So for me, I always direct my clients towards using AI, where you can have a good prediction, a good forecasting, but you know exactly what are the components that went in, because your vis-a-vis, the brand that you are presenting your results to, need to understand what has led to that prediction or that forecasting. You cannot say this is just the best algorithm that I have, and this is the result I have, and I can't explain it. So I think in our field, it's very important that we use the AI methods that can help us understand the drivers of the model, and then we can then disseminate them to our clients.
Yeah, I think about it in terms of levels of explainability, right? Because
yes,
and to kind of compare it back to multi-touch attribution, or what we had multi-touch attribution, which was for a long time heuristic, is last click, first click, linear, time decay, just basically people making decisions and then applying that, and then you get into the data-driven attribution with Google coming out with that with odometry and all of that, and like. You can't tell me a single marketer out there. Well, okay, I'm sure there are some that understood that they were using Shapley and Markov chain Monte Carlo and how that was actually working. It might as well have been a black box, right?
Yes.
And same with you could do.
But that's why it was treated with so much skepticism, though, too, right? In that there was so many folks out there going, "This is just Google's ploy to get more dollars and to make X, Y, and Z happen." Yeah. And I think that's where there's always an inherent risk associated with. If you both selling the media and measuring the media, then people will be inherently skeptical, right? But that is, I think, what obviously that connection doesn't exist here. But that is something that it's a hard thing to explain, because I think as soon as folks feel that you've gone above their knowledge level, there is a degree of distrust or there's something here they're pulling the wool over my eyes. And I think to your point, there's explainability to data analysts, but I think the hardest part is explainability to marketing leadership. And that's going to be a struggle in perpetuity, because AI is only going to get more robust in the way that it's deployed and utilized. And I think there will be a point that will sort of frame that up as this is the black box chasm. It's going to be very, very hard to explain. And you just have to trust that if the model is good and the model is accurate and enable smart decisions, that we maintain that path, because quite honestly, it will be too hard to explain. And it's going to be a struggle.
And kind of like multi-touch attribution and data-driven attribution over time kind of became accepted.
The proof's in the pudding.
And that's what people do. I feel like we'll probably get there too with MMM.
There are things, for example, in multi-touch attribution that were obvious. For example, the fact that everything is incremental, there is no base. The fact that it doesn't occur, but nobody really, because of its hype, nobody really had as I mentioned earlier on, the audacity to say, "Hey ho!" I mean, there is a big part of your marketing mix that you are not accounting for. But that's because, and again, I think now what's happening is that because of what happened with MTA, I feel that the people that work in measurement now dare more to say what are the limits of every single. So when we say marketing mix model, we know also that there is other things that are being done in terms of measurement. We cannot say that marketing mix modeling give you all the answers. We need to understand as well what are the limitations of marketing mix modeling. We need to understand what does it mean, a confidence interval in the context of a measurement in marketing mix modeling. And what I always say, you need to be honest, okay? You need to be honest. If your client is pushing you to get a measurement and you don't get a measurement, and if you get a measurement and you have a small t-stat, it's very important to say that we have your measurement, but please bear in mind that this is not robust, and explain exactly what does not robust. Meaning that the minute you repeat the same activity, you are not ensured to get the same uplift. And at the end of the day, we marketing mix model, we help decision making. We don't make decisions, but it's very important that when we present our results, we give all the caveats possible, so the decision makers, when they make decisions, they know what are the results that came strong, very robust, what are the ones where they need to use more experimentation to have more valid results, and what are the results where the signal was too low or too small, or we didn't break through in order for us to get measurement. But I think the worst case scenario is when marketing mix model try to say that marketing mix model gives you an answer for everything. And this is something that I do not adhere to, and I think it's very important to say it does this, it has limitation in this, and it definitely cannot do this. Be honest. I think that's the most important thing that we can offer our clients in the measurement landscape.
Not to get too into the psychology of it, but why do you think folks do that? Because I see that happening out there, and I don't know, maybe it's because the CMO says, I needed to do all these things, and they just go, yeah, it can do it all. I've heard others talk about like analysts are people pleasers, and like that's a valid sort of construct, but at the same time, we're scientists. And one of the central tenets of science is to say, like, this is incorrect, this is correct, and here's the evidence as to why. And there are things that we can and cannot do, and we should be very specific about that. But we, for whatever reason, go on the hype cycle and say, it does everything. It's God's gift to measurement. You'll never need another tool.
Yeah, I think probably, Simon, these things come with maturity. Perhaps, I don't know, 15 years ago, I wouldn't dare saying what I say today.
Sure.
But I know for a fact that now that I say things the way they should be said, I feel much more comfortable. I feel that I earn the respect of the clients we have because we are telling them the truth. Because sometimes they come to me and say, you know what, Ramla, there's this provider that promised that they will get results. They will do daily models updated every single week, and they will be able to deliver on it. And then I tell them, I can explain to you, like mathematically speaking, why this is not possible. I tell you that I cannot do it, nobody can do it, and I can explain to you why, but I can never tell you, no, because the others did it, I can do it, because I know it's not doable. So for me, I think that after a certain number of years of experience, you need to understand that very, very important to be honest and say what you can. It's not because I want to win a business that I am going to overpromise the client, because what happens, I can sign that contract for 1 or 2 years, but I know that the minute that contract will get renewed, it will never get renewed because I did not deliver. My client was not satisfied, and that's where the penny drops. So if you really want to build a sustainable business in MMM, you need to really how to say, put your mouth where your words are, or put your words where your mouth is very, very important.
Yeah.
And
no,
I was thinking, on one hand, like kind of Simon, what you're saying, like, why do people promise it can do everything? And, I see kind of both sides of it. One is that a lot of times marketers, and maybe this is an unfair characterization, but they just want the answer, right? They don't want to deal with all of the nuances and uncertainties and probabilistic nature of what we're doing. They just want the answer. Tell me the answer. And I feel like this is why, MTA was so popular. Absolutely. Because it's like, oh, there's the number. That's what it is. There's my ROI. And what we're dealing with is, uncertainty and introducing uncertainty to marketers. And, Matt Gershoff always talks about, like, we're just trying to reduce uncertainty, right? That's what we're going here for. And
yeah, but the thing is that one of the other things that also we need to explain, I think anybody can give you a model straight away. Modeling is not difficult. Now, how can you ensure that the results of the models tell a good story? This is another kettle of fish. Now, how can we make sure that from one update to the other, your results make sense without fixing? This is another story. So I say anyone can give you a number, but now, okay, you can give this number now, and then you have a short-term vision of things, and you are happy with that number. But the minute you commission an update of the project, that's where you struggle, because the story that will be told next time will be different from the one that you have already told. Then the manager will tell you which number should I trust, etc., etc. So that's why that consistency in measurement is very important. Even like if I am taking a project of another provider, the first thing that I do is I request the PowerPoint or any result from before, because what I do not want to happen is to say that our results are completely different from the incumbent marketing mix modeling, because I believe that anyone that does marketing mix modeling will do its best to deliver the best results. So it doesn't advance me to say to the client, what the others have done are not correct, and I'm giving you like the best answers now, and your ROI now jumped like theta. It doesn't work like that. There's a certain continuity that the business is used to, and you need to respect that. And you need to work your socks off to make sure that you obtain results that are in line with what has been delivered before. And then you can after that tweak to the margin and then move towards making the tweaks and changing things, but not really go for something completely different from one update to the other, of one provider to the other, because otherwise what happens that people won't trust any more marketing mix modeling, because this marketing mix modeling, each week it gives me results. And that's where you don't want to go.
Exactly.
It's so interesting. And I guess just to frame up some of the conversation we were having before around MTA and so forth, I think a lot of the challenge comes back to inherently asking the wrong question. And for a long time, it's been a question of credit assignment and not intelligent investment moving forward. And the more that can be reframed in terms of the best places, where's your next best dollar go, the better that is. But there's still this constraint where folks are holding on to the past of, I need to see credit allocations. And I think like that's always going to be part of the challenge there. Although when I hear you say, like not wanting to make a baby in the bathwater type shift, I think I understand the psychology behind it. But part of me also looks at it and says, well, why would they have changed company? There must be something that that's not being provided, or there must be something that's going on there. And when you talk earlier about mathematically proving like this is the way that this, and I look at that and say, like, how would you not sort of falsely be enforcing a model in that scenario? Or am I jumping off the wrong end of this and sort of like biting on little pieces? But I'm wondering, like, I don't know how much of this is sort of engineering the model to meet what we wanted to tell somebody, and it's just a new form of sort of puppetry or show or illusion.
I think in a way, to be honest, there is no escape from that. Because I tell you why, because mathematically speaking, you can create so many good models. Okay, now which one you would pick, that would entirely depend on your experience, on your knowledge of the brand, on the assumptions you have made. Because again, so if you're talking about AI earlier on, okay, you have an objective function. You defined, I want to have the best model in terms of R squared, risk statistic, I don't know, maybe, etc., etc. And then the genetic algorithm can give you 10 best combination, okay? Each one of them is good statistically, but each one of them could tell a complete different story.
Right.
So I think what happened, absolutely. So I think because we know that marketing mix modeling is art and science, I think that's where the human interpretation comes in and say, okay, out of all this set of 10, I'm going to choose the one that mirrors more what the business thinks, the assumption I have made, etc., etc. And the other thing that I always insist on in marketing mix modeling, I do not let the model tell me what's happening. So that's why I say in marketing mix modeling, 70% of the job is about doing your data preparation and your data interrogation. Because while you are, I remember at the time I used to have a colleague, Marilyn Baker, bless her. She used to be, she was a partner at the time in the company I used to work for. And she used to ask the analysts at the time, printing was not a horrible thing to do. She used to ask to do many, many printouts. And she would scrutinize every single graph of every single signal. And she would understand and learn by heart every single fluctuation and variation in the data. So when she looks at the model, and she doesn't even have any AI at the time, we are talking about 2004 here, right? And she would know exactly what variable should go into the model because she spent so much time looking at scrutinizing every single signal that she knows exactly where it should fit into the bigger picture. So I think what happens is that she was amazing. I think if you spend your time looking at your data, at the movement of your signal, and compare them to the dependent variable, you already have a story that started to build in your mind. Check that story with your client, with the different iterations, and then you'll find your best model, because that model will mirror what you have explored, what you have found out during that lengthy period, and as well as something that mirrors in a little bit the hypothesis that the business had. And that, I think, would be the best outcome you can get. You have a good statistical model, but at the same time, it's not the AI only that made the story, because at the end of the day, AI, what does it do? It will look in the space of the variable that you have created for them. So if you don't create additional feature, it will never come up with this feature. So the more time you spend interrogating the data, the more genius features you will be creating, and the more your AI algorithm will find a good model because you give it a good space to search within good quality data. So I think it's all fascinating because you cannot do modeling if you don't have good data, and you cannot do modeling if you don't have good data and good enhancement of the data by creating new features. So and you cannot have good features if you don't investigate this with the client, because there are so many hypotheses that your model can go into, and using the business inside can help you a lot in that.
Yeah, although I mean, that is such a great point. And I think the question that comes up there is, well, how can you start to incorporate that into the AI in terms of the business context and the human context? And there's a degree in my, at least, I don't know, this is like almost like a Terminator mindset where I go, yeah, ingest all my Slack chat logs, see all the conversations we've had about this business over time. And just, like when this thing happened, what did we see? Why did we see it? When an anomaly alert went off, why did we react the way we reacted? What did the client say about that? That honestly would be better than me, because there'll be emails that I was sent 3 months ago like, oh, we did have that conversation, didn't we? But I have no recollection of it because we've moved on and it wasn't a salient point. But that is something that I look at and say, that's sort of the next component of this, right? Is to bring in that business context by way of human communication.
Yeah, human communication. Also think about benchmarks, because again, when you have the history of running MMM, or you have some kind of benchmark by vertical, that the ROI in this specific industry would be between this and this. So those would be as well the priors that you would use in your modeling. You can also test that with your client. Do you have any other studies about triangulation? Of course, there are so many studies that can have about price elasticity, about experimentation, that you can also include as constraints. So I think, of course, you won't be asking a question about every and single thing, but you have specific questions about whether the industry has some benchmark, whether you have some benchmarks that you can embed in the tool in order to make sure that you converge to the right solution.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about how AI can be used and ways that it's already being used, and some of the challenges there, and how, we still need people involved, right? But
Yes.
I want to maybe shift a little bit of the conversation and look at sort of the flip side now. And so what we mentioned at the top about a lot of people saying, ringing the warning bells and saying, hold on, we can't just rely on AI and and machine learning and marketing mix modeling. And specifically, there were a couple of articles and open letters that came out earlier this year in the summer. One from Peter Kane around the AI illusion, and one that was an open letter signed by 17 prominent folks in the marketing measurement space, kind of again calling for sort of sounding the alarm around not just accepting solutions that promise AI and ML for your MMM. And I wonder, just kind of maybe reading the beginning of the open letter. It was the title of this one was "Beware Misleading MMM: A Warning from 17 Respected Experts." Today, 17 senior and well-respected specialists with deep expertise in marketing mix modeling, including Les Binet and Grace Kite and Lewis Cook, have published an open letter. It warns that the algorithms behind many new automated and platform-based solutions are too simplistic and not properly adapted to specific businesses being analyzed. And then there's, like I mentioned, the other article, and we'll leave these links in the show notes for everyone to go read for themselves. But the other article from Peter Kane, I feel, was a little bit more balanced and just kind of said, look, yes, we have AI, we have machine learning. Here's where it can be used. Here's where it can't be used. What are your thoughts on sort of the concerns around AI and ML being used in MMM from some of these some of the folks out there that are kind of raising these red flags?
Okay, so I think I would be more in line with what the views of Peter Kane, in the sense that there are things that definitely can be automated, and that where we can gain a lot of time when we embrace ML and AI. And there are definitely things in marketing mix modeling that would always be subject to human interpretation and human touch, etc., etc. To be honest, when I started mass analytics, because we come from that a school of thought where what we do is very bespoke. Every single client had a specific reality that we really need to construct a model manually. And I remember at the time, every single variable you enter it manually, and then you come in the other one and then the other one. And even myself at the time, because of that training I had, I used to think that there's no space for automation in what we do. Until I have met Dr. Firas Jabloon, who is my co-founder, that comes from a completely different background. So he's not corrupted by the way I was corrupted, thinking that marketing is very sophisticated, very complicated. You really need to have very good expert with rich experience in order to do MMM. So he comes from like engineering background, mathematics, software development, and he believed a lot on automation. And that was an eye-opener for me, because for once I take by the end, at the end of the day, things could be automated, you know? So I remember when I first pictured the auto modeler that we had in the software, I mean, the opposition that I had, especially from agencies that I wanted to sell the software to, is huge, because they thought that their competitive advantage lays into creating the model. I said to them, why don't you leave it to a good AI that can do this for you, but you can have a say on what that AI spits out to you. So you can tell them exactly what direction to take. So I think even myself, because I was like a pure produce of that MMM era where everything had to be done manually, it took me some time to realize, you know what, there are things that could be automated in marketing mix modeling. And to be honest, I mean, when I compare the way we do things now and the way we do things back in the days, I mean, there are many things that changed in the way I think about things. And I know now what is the real value of a human touch and where it should be spent, rather than everything should be manual. Otherwise, it won't be correct. So I think that it's very important to acknowledge that there are many things in marketing mix modeling that could do with the automation, AI, name it ML. And there are things where it still needs a good expert to interpret it, to package it well, to present it, to give the right recommendation, etc., etc. So I think it's there, it's helping us a lot, and we should embrace it, but understand how it works, take the positive, and the challenging part, we need to deal with it. But to say that everything that is automated doesn't work in MMM, it really makes me think of the days I used to think, when I was conditioned to think that the reality is only bespoke, manual, and then to be a good analyst, you really need to do everything with your hands. Otherwise, you are not given a good model, because this is not where the competitive advantage, I think, lays. There are other things where you can show your expertise, not really in doing the manual things and the search that other automated algorithm can do for you.
Yeah, it's like saying, well, you know, if you need to use a calculator to do some addition, that's not as good. You really need to write it out by hand and get the answer. It's like, no, you can get the answer either way. Like, you need to find what can be automated safely, and you can prove that things can be automated, and what really requires that human element.
So I think you use the calculator, you understand how the calculator works, so when it gives you a result that is not good, you understand why, because you know how it functions, but it doesn't mean that you need to repeat every single calculation by hand to make sure that is correct. Otherwise, you are wasting your time. So I think use the calculator, but know how to use the calculator. This is very important, because sometimes what I see in the newcomers in marketing mix modeling, because we know that the market is there. I think that research that showed that it will be reaching around $10 billion in terms of market size in 2030. So it's a big market for a lot of people that want to come in, but you need to understand what MMM is. So for me, I am in favor of any player that wants to automate MMM, but they need to understand what MMM is. I'm against those people that just see in this a big opportunity. They did never practice MMM before, and they want to create this magical tool that is powered by AI that provide answers. But anyone who worked enough in MMM to understand what are the challenges of MMM, then in that case, I would trust any output, because in a way, they know what are the challenges, and they will use the power of AI to automate things that could be automated and leave the human touch still there in what they are offering.
And I think this is exactly the point that maybe the authors of that open letter and some of these other articles are trying to get at. If I'm maybe interpreting what they're trying to say, is like, especially now with, third-party cookies being deprecated, and you have privacy regulations, and more acutely all of the changes that Apple has made to really kind of chip away at MTA. I think there's this sort of fear that a lot of like what you just said, a lot of people are seeing this increase in MMM, and they're seeing their opportunity to make a quick buck, and so they don't really know MMM, but they're just going to like throw ChatGPT at it or whatever AI is out there.
It's the MMM gold rush right now, right? It's
exactly.
It's the height of democratized access, but it's also, this has never been a more valuable currency for organizations who are left with we don't know what to do. And then, for lack of a better expression, there are a ton of snake oil MTA and MMM vendors out there, and that is a very scary thing. It's like a guy with a knife walking down the street. You're like, is he dangerous? I don't know. He could be a sushi chef, or he could be a murderer. And there's a lot of these folks out there who you don't know what they're going to be doing with these tools.
Right. Yes. And so to that point, how do we know if it's a sushi chef or a murderer? How do we know, for companies out there who are evaluating either tools or vendors or partners, what are things that they should be asking? Because, the reason they're looking for these tools or partners or vendors is because they don't know enough about MMM to do it themselves, and they're trying to get some help. So, it's one of those situations where it's like, before data was everywhere, before you could go online and search anything, it's the knowledge asymmetry, and you'd like go to buy a car and you didn't know if it was a good car or not, and you'd get taken for granted. And same thing now, like you don't know who's a good MMM vendor or not. How do people find out? Like what questions should they ask?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I already published a few articles on this. So I think there are certain elements that you need to check before you engage with any MMM provider. So I think the first thing is the transparency and the integrity. So an objectivity of the analysis that you can get from them. Especially transparency is very important, because transparency means that at any point in time you can look into the models, what is composing the model, so you can challenge what is being done to you. The second one, I think, is very important to choose a vendor that has a good track record of marketing mix modeling. So having a tool, as opposed to knowing the industry of MMM, is a completely different kettle of fish, because you can take a bunch of good software developer that can create something that looks fancy to you, but they don't really know what marketing mix modeling means, and they don't know what is the media and what is. So they don't know any of this, and just creating something that they think is, that the client could think is fancy, but it doesn't serve the purpose. And I think that as well, to choose a partner where the technology has been proven, that they have a track record of good clients, that they are using them, they are repeating the business with them. Because when you see that there is a retention rate of 85%, it really means, it really means that actually that provider is good, and not only good, but it kind of keeps its promises, and the proof of that the clients come in and then renew their services with them. And I think all of this is also down to something, and you mentioned it yourself. So you are shopping for a car when you don't know what is a car. So I think the first thing that I should do as a decision maker is to make sure that I understand what MMM is. And to be honest, Jim and Simon, the reason for which I released those Udemy courses recently and the YouTube video, because this is a message to decision makers, to analysts, to media planners. If they tell you that MMM is very sophisticated, very complicated, and nobody wants to explain it to you, I am going to explain it to you, because I believe there is a value in you understanding what it means, because it means that you will be using the right criteria to pick up the right partners for you. I think the more we explain marketing mix model, the more we move away from that black box that only a specific layer of people understand in the world, and make it exclusive to big management consultancy. The more people use MMM, the more people know about MMM, the better it gets, because it means that the decision makers will know what they are talking about. They know what they are expecting. So I think the more the industry talks about the secrets of MMM, the more we will get there. So I think before the Udemy courses and the YouTube videos, there is no single source in the internet where you search for marketing mix modeling, you find something, except for the fact that marketing mix modeling helps you obtain your drivers and get your ROI and do prediction. Other than that, they don't even talk about how it's being done. So I think we started that move. I've seen that others have followed, and this is great news because it means that we are educating the market more about MMM. So these decision makers, when they make decisions about marketing mix modeling, they know exactly what to follow and how they can differentiate between the different vendors out there.
Yeah. There are definitely some red flags to look for, and I like the one you said. If you're talking to someone and they say, "Oh, this is too complicated to be able to explain. It's very
No,
sophisticated."
don't take it.
Just
Absolutely.
run the other way.
Yeah. Yes, I do.
I mean,
I
it
do
means they don't
fully
understand
agree.
themselves.
Yeah,
Realistically,
it means that they don't understand themselves. It means that when they are going to debrief the results to you, and when the client will ask questions, they won't be able to respond because they will tell you, no, you don't get it. You're not as bright as us. And again, because probably I come from an academic background, for me, you are not a good professor if your client or your students are not capable of explaining the things that they are being taught. Okay, there's nothing like it is like that, and that's it. There's nothing like that for me because again, this is my academic training that me. Same thing. So and sometimes I really want hard to explain that in a very simple word, because the more that person that you are disseminating your results to is understanding what you are saying, the more he will play a good advocate for your results internally. So it's really not in your interest to say to them, it's very complicated, you have to be an econometrician to understand that, and start using all this like jargon of log linear, nested modeling, instrumental. They won't understand that. And we always say the good data is the one that is capable of explaining mathematical equations in layman terms, things that anybody can understand. If I talk to my 10 years old son, he will be able to understand what I am saying. And this is, I think, what people need to get. It's not about showing how good I am, just using a jargon that nobody understands, but using very simple words that people can relate to, and they can use that jargon themselves in order to use it internally and convince more teams to embrace marketing mix modeling.
Exactly. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we do have to start to wrap this up. We are almost at the end of an hour now. So one thing we do like to do is at the end, we like to give our listeners an incremental insight, some nugget of knowledge, a blog post or a video or a podcast or something that they can take and take action on right at the end of after listening to this podcast, and of course leaving a rating and review and smashing the like button and all that good stuff. So Dr. Ramla, do you have an incremental insight for our listeners?
Yes, I do. And actually, c'est un avant-première, as we say in French, avant-première. So basically, we, Mass Analytics, we are going to launch your ultimate end-to-end marketing mix modeling guide. It's about 100 pages that will probably be released in 2 weeks' time. That will take you all the way from data collection to recommendation and insight. So it's like how to kind of guide about marketing mix modeling. So I'll send you the link whenever it's ready. Is in the final editing steps, and it should be it's going to be free. As all the material that we release up there. And it's really meant for data analysts. It's also meant for decision makers to understand more what MMM is about. So this is your ultimate guide for marketing mix modeling like you've never seen before.
Fantastic.
That sounds amazing.
I can't wait to see this. Yeah.
I was going to say, I can't wait to read that. It sounds like, Jim, that would be amazing on MMM Hub.
Of course.
And just while I was thinking about that.
I was thinking about this as well. I was thinking about what if I send it to you as a premiere, so you can send it to your newsletter, and then after that, Mass Analytics can release it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd be
First
happy.
look exclusive. And of course, Jim, just last week, has started the MMM Hub Slack group,
I've seen that.
There are so many MMM practitioners in here, and folks who are MMM curious, as well as folks who are just MMM enthusiasts. Some of the conversation I've seen going on has been just incredible about the areas folks are diving into, and I imagine that this kind of guide this will be a really great one, a spark for the folks who are MMM curious, but then two, just a really great conversation around how do you make MMM accessible and understandable, folks, because it's taken off like a rocket, and I don't know, 95% of the industry still doesn't really understand it. So that sounds incredible. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, so that's the aim of this, is really, again, in this series of demystifying the myth and making it accessible, is like we have released that. So everything to know about marketing mix modeling from A to Z, completely free, as I mentioned. I will be happy to send it to you in the hub first to be published, and then after that we release it. But because I know that your audience is about marketing measurement, so I cannot dream of a better audience for this guy to start with, and then we'll disseminate it to the rest of the public later.
Fantastic. And
that's awesome.
Very much looking forward to that. And thank you for taking so much time to share your wisdom with us. And
thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
And this has been wonderful, and I wish I could see what's coming up next in your crystal ball. If back in 2013 you were predicting the rise of MMM, I'd love to know what you're thinking is coming our way.
Oh my God, don't
2033. Maybe a follow-up podcast. That could be a fun one.
We'll have you back on in 10 years, and we'll see what's changed.
Yes. Yes, we'll see.
All right.
Awesome.
Until next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.